Hello and welcome to Post to Post, the channel where we discuss all things hockey and all teams. I've done my East and West predictions, you've done your East and West predictions, Jason has done his East predictions, Justin's done his West predictions, and now it's time for Justin's East predictions. So he's filmed a video, he's gone through all the teams, and I believe he did it a little bit opposite. He started at the top of each division and went down, but either way he did it, and he's given reasons for all of his decisions. So Justin, take it away.
All right, guys, so today I'm going to be giving my Eastern Conference regular season predictions. Whew, try to say that 10 times fast. Okay, so let's start with the Metropolitan Division. Now, this past season, the Metropolitan Division was easily the most competitive division in the entire NHL. And to me, it came as a bit of a surprise because we had the emergence of a team like for Columbus, for example, who had that amazing win streak. However, if it wasn't for that win streak, I don't even think they would have made the playoffs, unfortunately for them. But that win streak was something to behold, and it catapulted them into the playoff picture. And anytime Columbus gets into the playoff picture, even though I'm a Penguins fan, I find it very exciting because I really have a lot of respect for the Columbus fan base. And my goodness, when playoff comes around, the atmosphere inside that arena, that is contagious. That is something to behold. But that could be a video on itself, just talking about that amazing win streak Columbus had last season. So let's start at the top. I'm going to predict now. Hey, maybe some of you might be shocked by this because of previous videos about how I ranted about them or a certain player. I'm going to predict that the Washington Capitals are going to win the Metropolitan once again. You know, history tells us as of late that Washington has this amazing ability to do phenomenal things in the regular season, including Ovechkin, who's won countless, Rocket Richards, he's won the Art Ross, the Hart, that sort of thing. But they just can't get it done in the playoffs. And, that's something that I can rant about over and over and over again of why Washington can have success in the regular season, but they can't transition that to the playoffs. But I really think that the regular season success will continue this year, and they will win the Metropolitan. Next up in second, I think this might surprise a couple again, much like I picked Washington for the first. I'm picking the New York Rangers to finish second in the Metropolitan. I feel that they still have a very strong club there. If I were to do a playoff prediction today, I wouldn't be putting the Rangers in the Eastern Conference Final, that's for sure. But I do think they'll finish the regular season second in the Metropolitan. Now, third place, I am going to pencil in the Pittsburgh Penguins. Consistency is key with Pittsburgh because they have a very long streak of making the playoffs. And you look at the cup-winning team last year, and then you look at the current lineup today. Yeah, there were a lot of key guys that have since left the team, and the one that hurt the most, I think, would be Nick Bonino. That really left a gaping hole on the third line. They really need a center on their third line. And, they did make a trade today with Pouliot and so on, but I'm actually shocked they haven't directly addressed that need for a third-line center. Are they as good as last year? That remains to be seen, but that core, the main core of that team is intact, minus Marc-Andre Fleury. However, with the emergence of Matt Murray, I'm not really scared of, their chances in goal. Murray has proven back-to-back years that he can be relied upon in order to steal a game or hold a game. And the only real thing that's going to be a test this year is how Matt Murray transitions into the role of being the number one guy playing through the regular season. Because if we go back to the last 2 years, yeah, he was part of the Stanley Cup winning team, but he wasn't the guy that was starting games, night in, night out, and that sort of thing. Like, yes, now they have Antti Niemi. Not necessarily a pushover either, but he's not exactly a young Matt Murray. So I don't see Niemi taking on, 30-plus starts, that sort of thing. But the workload this year for Matt Murray is going to be through the roof compared to the previous 2 years. I hope he's ready for it, but I know the Pittsburgh Penguins will be ready for it. And I see them potentially coming out of the East once again. So next up, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets. I really think with the few offseason changes they made, I think they're a stronger club this year. I think they learned a lot from last year. But I also think that last year they overachieved. Sorry, Columbus fans, that's just how I feel about it. But they're a great club. I love watching them play, and I think they'll be fourth in the Metropolitan this year. Next up, I have the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, they really came on strong at the end of last year, and they were making this insane effort to get into the playoffs. And it was very exciting to watch, but unfortunately for them, it was too little too late. They basically floundered the season very early on, unfortunately. But they have a great young core in there. They have a lot of up-and-coming young talent as well. I see bright things ahead for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I think this year they're going to be taking a step up. Next year, perhaps even another step further. And in time, the Carolina Hurricanes, they could be that old Carolina Hurricanes team that went all the way to the Stanley Cup. So next up, I have the bottom three in the Metropolitan, and these are my picks for the three teams that I'm going to predict right now are not going to make the playoffs this year. So third last in the Metropolitan, I picked Philadelphia, followed by the Islanders, followed by New Jersey. So I picked Jersey to finish dead last in the Metropolitan. So there's three teams that I'm stating now will not make the playoffs. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Who knows? That's the fun part about predictions. The season hasn't even started yet, and yet I'm declaring, okay, this team's going to make it, and they're going to be in this spot. This team's not going to make it, and so on. Now, this is mainly just based upon, okay, this is how the team was last year. This is what they've done this year to change things. And, this is what the future outlook is based on, who they drafted, how well this player has developed through training camp, if I think the player's going to be part of their opening lineup. There's a lot of factors in this. And unfortunately, the Philadelphia Flyers and New York Islanders and the New Jersey Devils, I don't see making the playoffs this year. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But, the Islanders, they did add Jordan Eberle. I think maybe him and Tavares could maybe get some chemistry going. Unfortunately for Eberle, from day one, I don't think it really worked out for him with Edmonton. The kid had amazing magic in the World Junior Tournament, but he just wasn't able to bring that magic to the NHL. Change of scenery? Who knows? Maybe Jordan Eberle could be dynamite for the New York Islanders, and him and Tavares could become the new dynamic duo in the NHL. You never know. But just as it stands right now, I don't think the New York Islanders will make the playoffs. Maybe I'm wrong. So on to the Atlantic. I am stating now, and I really think this could be true, because I penciled these guys to win the Stanley Cup this year, and I think number one in the Atlantic will be the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, this past season, the Tampa Bay Lightning really deserved a lot more than they got. Injuries just completely killed their season, and I felt for a lot of guys on the team. They have arguably one of the best defensemen in the NHL, perhaps the entire world, in Hedman. But I was a little shocked with the whole Ben Bishop scenario. We'll have to wait a little bit to see how that plays out, because I do consider Ben Bishop one of the top 5 in the world when it comes to goaltenders. So I really think Tampa Bay is going to be a force to be reckoned with this year, and I think they will be a very scary team, and I think a lot of teams will overlook them and just kind of be taken back with what they're able to bring to the ice night in, night out. Number 2, now this one, I can't believe I'm picking these guys because I've overlooked them for so many years. Number 2, I'm penciling in the Toronto Maple Leafs. The amazing, amazing core of young talent that the Toronto Maple Leafs has. Wow, that's infectious. Suddenly I'm paying a lot more attention to the Toronto Maple Leafs just because of these great young players they have in Marner and Matthews, and the list goes on, Nylander. They're a very exciting team to watch, and as these players mature and they get more experience under their belt, the Toronto Maple Leafs will just continue to get better and better and better. And based on last season, it seems that they have now penciled in their starting goalie. Anderson was amazing for them last year. Can that continue? Remains to be seen, but I really think it will, and I think Toronto would finish second in the Atlantic. Next up, the Ottawa Senators. So they're 2 Canadian teams that I'm penciling in right now to make the playoffs. Ottawa scared me and shocked a lot of others when they really took it to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Ottawa was 1 goal away from going back to the Stanley Cup final for the first time in a long time. And it was Chris Kunitz, who was the hero for the Pittsburgh Penguins, who scored in double overtime. Double overtime. That's how close the Ottawa Senators were. And man, they really, really surprised me. They have arguably the best puck-moving defenseman in the world in Erik Karlsson. They got a great group of young guys up front. A guy like Pajot, for example. Wow, he really stood out for me in that series with Pittsburgh. And, these guys are just getting better and better. And I think the experience factor now of really being able to take it to the reigning defending Stanley Cup champions and being this close to eliminating them, I think that's going to really play well for them moving forward. And with Guy Boucher at the helm, I see nothing but great things for the Ottawa Senators for years to come. And I think they're going to finish third in the Atlantic this year. So next up, I would pencil in the Florida Panthers, followed by the Boston Bruins. Now, for these teams, I don't really see them moving up or moving down. Like, yeah, there was a few subtle changes and so on. But, for example, like Florida allowing, I can never pronounce this guy's name correctly. Is it Marchessault? Marchessault? Yes, I'm going with that. How they allowed him to basically just be gobbled up in the expansion drafts beyond me. Florida's done quite a few things over the last while that have made me kind of question their motives here, like with the firing of their head coach there, and then that whole scenario, and I don't know. And with Boston as well, I see like a lot of their core guys. For example, Zdeno Chara, he's not getting any younger, but they still rely on him so heavily. I mean, yeah, he can bring some things to the club that can benefit them, but at this point of his career and his age, I don't think he should be playing the minutes that he's playing, and, Boston really needs to concentrate on the future. Okay, who's going to be our next Zdeno Chara, right, to lead our blue line into the future? And, I see Boston just basically staying silent where they are, just kind of on the bubble of just about to the postseason, but I see them staying just on the outside this year. So the three teams that I'm penciling in right now to not make the playoffs this year are Montreal, Buffalo, and Detroit. I think, this year was eye-opening when Detroit missed the playoffs and ended that insane run of consecutive appearances in the playoffs. I think Detroit's on the downward spiral, but in a good way, to the point where now, with their aging core, they can look to rebuild for the future. And I don't see Detroit potentially making the playoffs for the next 3 to 4 years. But they always say in order to reap the benefits, you have to feel the pain for a while. And Toronto Maple Leafs fans, Edmonton Oilers fans, they will completely understand what I'm talking about, especially Edmonton Oilers fans. They've been through so much disappointment with first overall draft picks and missing the playoffs for, basically a decade. But now there's light at the end of the tunnel, and the Edmonton Oilers have the best player in the world in their lineup. And, their club is looking better than ever. So I think Detroit's in that mode right now where they're going to be missing the playoffs for the next little while and then stockpiling draft picks and developing within. And then in time, eventually they'll have a playoff-ready team on the ice. Montreal, Montreal kind of disappointed me with Radulov. I really thought Radulov fit in well with Montreal and he did phenomenal things. I was really sad to see that whole scenario fall apart, and bringing in Drouin is great. But again, it's one of these small forwards. I don't know what it is with Montreal. They just have this infectious appetite of always wanting these small forwards in their lineup. But I don't know. I don't see Drouin going to the point of, 80, 90 points or that sort of thing. He's a great player, mind you. But I don't think he's the type of player that they require in order to go further on into the playoffs. Buffalo's still kind of in limbo right now, and to me the biggest issue in Buffalo is with the ownership group and not actually with management or that sort of thing. The problem with Buffalo is the ownership group continues to put their hand inside the cookie jar to say, I was kind of doing the Don Cherry thing. All you kids out there, hands on the desk. The the problem with them is they always kind of undermine the guy that they hire to be their general manager. He wants to make a trade, they veto and say, well, wait a minute, we don't want to do that, and so on. So then what's the point of having a GM and a head coach and that sort of thing? So Buffalo has a lot of issues on the back end. Now, on paper, on the ice, they got a great lineup. And, of course, with Eichel coming back healthy, you know, them losing him for a big length of time, that really hurt them this past year. But, you know, moving forward, hopefully Eichel can stay healthy because he is a great player, and Buffalo's that much better with him in the lineup. So there you have it. There are my predictions before the season even starts. It's almost a little crazy to fathom making predictions before you even know starting day lineups and so on and so forth. I mean, hey, opening night, you know, knock on wood here. Hope you can hear that. I'm knocking on wood. Hopefully, you know, somebody doesn't get injured. But hey, it can happen, you know. A Sidney Crosby, a McDavid, a Chris Letang. Chances are that'll probably happen. Poor Letang, he's always injured. You know, these guys can be injured opening night, and suddenly the outlook for the whole season changes drastically. So, of course, you know, take this with a grain of salt. These are just my predictions from the facts and what I've researched and read up to this point. Maybe in a month's time, I'll want to change my mind. But hey, it was a lot of fun. I spent roughly several hours researching statistics from last year, researching, of course, training camp rosters, people who were cut, that sort of thing. I went back and checked draft picks and, you know, the odds of them potentially getting into opening night lineups. Of course, read through injury reports, and the list goes on and on and on. And this is what I came to a conclusion on of where I think each team will finish the regular season in the Eastern Conference. So, with that, thanks guys for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.
All right, thank you very much, Justin, for doing that. We really appreciate it. It's always great to hear from you, and I know you guys at home appreciate it as well. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one. Adios.